The internet erupted in shock as soon as the exclusive images were made public. When Rasheeda's unvarnished voice reverberates on social media, the anger increases. You chose her over me. Devoted followers are startled to discover flaws in Kirk. Frost's idyllic existence overnight. As whispers circulated, casting doubt on allegiances and revealing a secret no one had anticipated. Emotions were running high. These shocking claims have sparked a flurry of conjecture in a family already put to the strain by notoriety and conflict. Could Kirk really fall in love with the woman he allegedly intended to have a family with? The family was split apart as messages flooded timelines, with fans trying to put together the facts. Insiders exchanging whispered confessions, and friends picking sides. A single picture of Kirk holding an unidentified infant stands out among the confusion as a chilling reminder of treachery. Fans are left gasping as each new revelation they discover seems more explosive than the last. This overnight scandal has become the talk of reality TV fandom, with every comment section ablaze and followers uniting behind Rasheeda's anguish. The following scene will be unexpected and have you on the edge of your seat, so prepare yourself. As Kirk's secrets collide with Rasheeda's world, stay tuned for an inside look at every shocking turn. As Kirk lingered at the edge of the opulent marble foyer, the chandeliers illuminating his tired face with broken light, the anxiety reached a fever pitch. Rasheeda's perfume hung in the air like a ghost, and her absence was deafening. Kirk's senses told him that every second that passed was another nail in the coffin of their marriage, and he shook his hand and ran it through his hair. Holding his phone like a lifeline, he scrolled through messages from pals who shared his situation and offered encouragement, but no answers. Suffocated by his own secrets, he felt the walls closing in about him. Rasheeda's arrival was signaled by a gentle click. With a garment of dignity carefully wound about her, she moved with silent grace. As she paused and looked around the room with steely resolve, Kirk's breath caught. She walked past him silently, her heels resonating in the stillness. With every step driven by desperation, Kirk swallowed the lump in his throat and followed. They were both greeted by the mahogany-paneled living room, but the warmth was gone. 2 glasses with their contents, dried into sticky rings, were left on the coffee table. Rasheeda's voice was as fragile as broken glass when she whispered, "You lied." Kirk felt his throat tighten. He wanted to reach out and close the gap between them, but she ignored him. Her gaze focused on the framed wedding photo. From its vantage point, the picture of better days suddenly seemed like a betrayal. Head in hands, Kirk lowered himself onto the velvet settee. Rasheeda's face hardened as he murmured, "I'm sorry, I never wanted to hurt you." With quivering shoulders, she responded, "Sorry isn't enough. You constructed a new life behind my back." The thought of their nocturnal argument, which had pushed him into the arms of someone who swore to keep secrets, made Kirk's chest tighten. "You chose her over me." He had vowed to stop it, but every goodbye got more difficult as his guilt clouded his judgment. Now that he was facing Rasheeda's grief, he realized there was no turning back. Desperate to catch a peek of their failing relationship, photographers outside jammed their lenses against the glass. In Kirk's memory, strobe-like agony was created by flashes that illuminated through heavy draperies. As they flickered across the mosaic floor like broken dreams, each flash of light mirrored Rasheeda's grief. Kirk Frost's double life exposed, Rasheeda betrayed by husband's secret baby, and fans outraged at celebrity scandal were some of the headlines he imagined. The idea of public scrutiny tearing apart what little privacy he still had made. His chest-tight the granite countertop in the kitchen was discolored by a coffee cup that had been left behind. Kirk recalled mornings spent planning trips, thinking about growing old together and laughing over mugs exactly like this. He extended his hand, stroking the broken porcelain with his fingertips, missing the carefree days of the past. However, the betrayal rippled too far. The past could not be reclaimed. Sunlight surrounded Rasheeda's silhouette as she stood in the doorway, her golden radiance transforming her into a goddess of agony and retribution. Guilt pulsing through his veins, Kirk stood up. "Explain everything to me," she insisted. Kirk paused. It seemed like ripping open new scars to describe the covert meetings with the other woman. Nevertheless, he owed Rasheeda the terrible truth. He spoke about dark parking garages, hurried hugs in deserted halls, and whispered discussions that had no business happening. Every confession struck like a sledge. Rasheeda's cheekbones were hollowed out from restless nights, and her eyes gleamed. With unshed tears, the room held its breath as Kirk finished. Rasheeda's quiet was deafening. At last, she said in a quiet but firm voice, "I don't know who you are anymore." Kirk blinked, the words pressing down on him. His voice failed him as he sought to elicit an apology, an explanation, anything to say what was left. He was reminded that life was going on mercilessly by the siren's distant cries outside. The silence broke quickly. Kirk's attention was pulled to his phone by a flurry of text alerts. A shaky film of him with the unidentified woman, whose belly curled with obvious life, had been discovered by fans. The entire world watched him hold a small bundle in his arms, covered in fluffy pastel blankets. The words "new life, new priorities" pierced deeper than any blade. And Kirk's stomach twisted as Rasheeda read the caption out loud, her voice resonating. In the empty room, Rasheeda's unfiltered and unpolished sob relieved the strain. Kirk sank to his knees next to her as he crossed the gap. His trembling fingers found her cool skin as he reached for her hand. With anger igniting behind her tears, she jerked away. Kirk felt the earth give way beneath him. This was no longer a personal torment. It was a spectacle that was shown on all screens and analyzed by millions of people who loved his demise. Allies fled like scared birds in the days that followed. Once Kirk's best buddy Yandi wrote the enigmatic message, "Family first, always." Fans wondered if it was a covert blow at Kirk's transgressions or a defense of Rasheeda, unable to balance his allegiance to both. Scrappy vanished from social media, stoking speculation that he had chosen the wrong side. The story was shaped by the growing volume of the whispers. Kirk Frost, once admired, is now despised. Rasheeda withdrew into seclusion, refusing to be interviewed or make any statements. Kirk had to negotiate a whirlpool of remorse and guilt while she was gone. He went to meetings with public relations specialists, but the statements seemed forced and hollow. Written apologies behind closed doors did not put out the fire that the supporters had fanned. His suffering increased with every new leak, whether it was a text message, a location that was kept hidden, or a loving letter to the unborn kid. Kirk showed up alone at a charity dinner one evening, the chandeliers glistening over people he could hardly recognize. Although there was a lot of courteous discussion going on in the room, Kirk could feel every silence and sidelong glance. As he made his way through the crowd with fake smiles on his face, cameras flashed. He saw Rasheeda's close friends huddled together in a corner with their backs to him. He felt a feeling of remorse sweep over him. He thought about running away, but honor drew him on. A silence descended as he walked up to their circle and spoke softly. "I'm ready to talk when you are." Eyes raised, looking over his face, some icy, some inquisitive. With her mouth pushed into a narrow line, one friend shook her head, another murmured to a friend, amusement mixed with sad laughter. Kirk felt vulnerable, his flaws accentuated. The altruistic facade of the charity function vanished, exposing the harsh truth. His life had irrevocably changed. Kirk came home that night to find his house deserted. The quiet, strange, and harsh. He moved from room to room, looking for solace in previously occupied spaces. The pillows still smelled of Rasheeda, a bitter reminder of the warmth that was no longer there. In the nursery, where the walls were painted in gentle tones for a child he would hardly know, Kirk dropped to the floor. As he put his palm on the empty cradle and imagined the life growing outside of his grip, tears clouded his vision. The gravity of his decisions became more pressing by the hour. He considered the unborn child an innocent bystander to his deceit. His thoughts turned to Rasheeda, whose heart had been broken by the man she trusted the most. Then he considered the fans, who mercilessly criticized after every slip-up and admission. Kirk came to the realization that redemption might be a far-off shore, one he had no assurance he would ever reach among the wreckage of his own creation. Nevertheless, glimmer of resolve ignited inside him in the shadows of that lonesome evening. He would come out of hiding. He would face the consequences, take responsibility for his actions, and fight for the child, for Rasheeda, and for what little of his life was left. The world waited outside, eager to see what would happen next. In this amazing story, inside, Kirk made a commitment to deal with the tempest he had caused. Kirk prepared for the next stage of his self-inflicted ordeal by pressing his palms against the cool nursery wall and inhaling the subtle aroma of fresh paint and baby powder. He was kneeling on the wooden floor when dawn light slanted through, half-closed blinds creating stripes. Every ray of light seemed to shine on his regret like a spotlight. Determination blazed beneath his chest. He owed it to everyone he had deceived to confront them head-on. He managed to slip out of the room and ended up standing in front of a mirror in the master suite, gazing into the lifeless eyes of a man who had exchanged honesty for secret. With a shuddering sigh, he decided to get in touch with Rasheeda's closest friends and start a conversation he had long shunned, his heart thumping with a nearly dead hope. He first dialed Yandi's number. She answered in a tired voice a few moments later. "Kirk," she said in a cautious tone, with a voice breaking under the weight of regret. He apologized bluntly and admitted that concealing the pregnancy was cowardice rather than a form of protection. He pledged openness going forward. After a long moment of silence, Yandi said, "Words alone won't be enough to restore trust." Kirk promised to show his sincerity by nodding to himself as though she could see. Actions will. He then wrote a letter, too scrappy, in which he acknowledged the conflict he must be experiencing between his allegiance to Kirk and his support for Rasheeda. He acknowledged that being quiet only served to feed rumors. With cautious forgiveness, Scrappy replied, cautioning Kirk that any ill-advised action would solidify his banishment. Kirk's pride was eroded by each candid conversation, which replaced haughtiness with humility. By the end of the afternoon, Kirk had a shaky hope beginning to grow. Maybe, just maybe, honesty could restore what lies had destroyed in an attempt to use family connections where his own persuasion was ineffective. Kirk asked Rasheeda's sister for a private meeting that evening. He discovered her drinking tea in a bright patio where birds sang overhead. With one eyebrow raised in wary interest, she smiled coolly. Kirk talked on how much he loved Rasheeda and how he regretted keeping quiet out of fear of confrontation. He pleaded with her to express his genuine regret to Rasheeda. Reluctantly, the sister consented, vowing not to minimize his shortcomings. Kirk saw the pieces of trust he had broken through her eyes and realized the massive effort that lay ahead. Rasheeda, meanwhile, battled her own emotional tempest. Nestled in a family friend's guest house with a view of the ocean, she paced the wooden floors while mentally reliving Kirk's confessions. Betrayal now permeated every memory of tenderness and laughter. The repetitive crash of the surf did not soothe her. Rather, its unrelenting constancy seemed to mock her distress. In the group chat, she exchanged messages with close confidants, expressing a mixture of hurt, rage, and cautious interest in Kirk's sudden openness. She wrote, "I feel so lost," to a buddy. "How can I trust someone who destroyed my entire world?" Responses came pouring in, with some telling her to give Kirk another chance and others stating that this might be the tipping moment. Unannounced and shaky under his own determination, Kirk arrived at the guest house late that night. With her hair being lifted by the sea breeze, Rasheeda stepped out onto the balcony. As he got closer, each silent stride weighed down by sorrow. Kirk's breath caught. At first, she kept her arms crossed and her eyes downcast without saying anything. Her favorite flower, gardenias, was brought by Kirk, and the aroma appeared to soften her heart. He avoided looking into her eyes and muttered, "I know saying sorry isn't enough." Rasheeda looked up with a flicker of surprise in her eyes and said, "But I'm here, fully exposed, willing to endure every consequence for a chance to make this. Right?" Kirk went on, steadying his voice. "I'll wait if you need time. I'll give you room if you need it. Tell me what you need, please." With a slow breath, the strain in her shoulders gradually subsided. She replied, "Show me you're serious." After a lengthy moment, and Kirk nodded, relief coursing through him. He pledged to do whatever it takes to demonstrate his dedication, including giving up his phone, disclosing all of his messages, and inviting outside scrutiny. What may have been the smallest trace of a smile trembled across Rasheeda's lips. They stood still as the scent of jasmine and moonlight blended together. For the first time since the scandal broke, Kirk sensed slender, but genuine strands of connection coming back together. Kirk kept all of his promises during the course of the following week. In sessions that left him exhausted but full of optimism, he opened up to Rasheeda's therapist in couples therapy. He gave his phone to a mutual friend he trusted so Rasheeda could look through all of his contacts and conversations. Solo news releases were replaced by joint remarks in which Kirk publicly addressed his regret for his errors, his sincere regrets, and his undying love for Rasheeda and their kids. At every appearance, Rasheeda sat next to him, arms clasped, a united front created by suffering and tenacity, rather than artifice. As the tone of the saga changed, fans watched in awe. Some people were unconvinced and insisted for verbal proof. The question, "Are they really reconciling?" went viral on social media. Leaked footage showed Kirk and Rasheeda strolling hand in hand down a lakeside route, heads bowed in meaningful conversation with the comment, "This feels orchestrated." Debate arose over the pictures. Was it a true reunion or damage control? Supporters praised Rasheeda's courage for facing down Kirk's betrayal head-on, while detractors criticized her of being weak for giving him another chance. Anxiety subsided into cautious optimism within the Frost household. As Rasheeda watched, Kirk got up early to assist with the kids' breakfast, grinning apprehensively. He expressed regret for skipping the school assembly last week in order to attend public relations meetings. Rasheeda accepted his apologies and thanked him quietly and gently. They reminisced about their early goals and first dates together, teeny moments that felt revolutionary in the midst of scandal. It was like they were reclaiming a piece of their history with each united chuckle. But beneath the surface, there were still questions. In her journal, Rasheeda revealed that forgiving others was like walking on hot coals. There was always a chance of being betrayed. Kirk was also plagued with guilt and slept through the night, worried that any mistake would send them plunging back into the abyss. They both envisioned a time when trust could be restored, even though they were aware that healing would not be quick or easy. When the unidentified woman appeared on a podcast, her voice quiet but resolute as she verified Kirk's paternity, external pressures increased. She begged followers to give the child a normal existence, saying she wanted support rather than turmoil. Public opinion changed as a result of the disclosure. Some were angry at Kirk for bringing the mother into the public eye, while others applauded his attempts to keep her identity a secret. Rasheeda experienced a range of emotions as she listened to the interview: resentment over her own exclusion, empathy for the mother's bravery, and a reluctant admiration for the woman's handling of the spotlight. Kirk responded with a heartfelt statement, highlighting his duty to both families and applauding the mother's bravery. In an effort to do the right thing for everyone, he set up private financial and emotional assistance for her and the child. Rasheeda supported him during a news appearance, reaffirming her resolve to overcome the agony in a steady voice. She stated, "Our family dynamic has changed, but we choose healing and honesty over denial." The public's sentiments started to fluctuate in unpredictable ways as the days stretched into weeks. Fans, influencers, and podcast hosts analyzed each action and exchange. Kirk and Rasheeda would occasionally find themselves binge-watching reaction videos, scoffing at criticism, and rejoicing in encouraging moments. They discovered how to block out the noise and concentrate on peaceful times at home, such as reading bedtime stories, cracking jokes among themselves, and restoring the bond that once bound them together. However, the route ahead continued to be steep. Rasheeda was advised by friends to maintain boundaries in order to make sure that Kirk's promises resulted in long-lasting transformation. Knowing that forgiveness is brittle, Kirk committed himself to doing small deeds of kindness, such as leaving notes for Rasheeda to find, volunteering to help out around the house, and asking for advice whenever uncertainty surfaced. They were getting closer to taking back the life they had almost lost every day. One fact remained constant throughout it. All the aftermath from the scandal had permanently changed their story. The world had been watching every move. Secrets had been revealed, and trust had been put to the test. But Kirk and Rasheeda found a certain resiliency in the furnace of betrayal and confession. Only time would tell if their love would blossom again or break down under lingering misgivings. For the time being, they walked hand in hand, resolved to let integrity lead them through the chaos they had previously caused. As Kirk and Rasheeda arrived to a nearby courthouse the next morning, tension was high and cameras were positioned around like vultures circling new victims. The foyer was filled with rumors. Are they here for custody talks? Is damage control an element of this public display? Fans are taken aback by the typically quiet couple's sudden entry into the court struggle. As Kirk fumbled with his tie, his fingers shaking, emotions were running hot. Rasheeda stood resolutely next to him, her chin up, but her eyes showed a tornado of uncertainty. When Kirk's legal team issued a statement stating that he only wished to formalize visiting rights for his secret child, and that no danger was meant to Rasheeda's relationship with her own children, the family was left split. The public perceived undercurrents of rivalry and power struggle beneath the polished exterior. Notwithstanding the well-chosen language, drama was in the air inside the courtroom. After providing test data that showed conception months before Rasheeda's friends had conjectured, Kirk's lawyer started by describing paternity confirmation. When the judge brought up the dates of conception that coincided with Kirk's departure from home, the gallery erupted in applause. He was on tour at the time, whispered the crowd. Did he travel to meet her under the radar? Rasheeda's heart was beating so loudly that she thought the judge might hear it as she pressed her lips together. Kirk's attorney persisted, outlining a confidential settlement offer intended to protect the family from additional controversy. When the word settlement was spoken, Rasheeda's eyes tightened, thinking it was an attempt to buy her silence. Amidst the courtroom altercation, an unexpected witness surfaced. The social media influencer claiming to be Kirk's child's mother, wearing a modest blouse and trousers. She entered the stand and spoke steadily as she related how shocked she was to hear about Kirk's covert double life. Calmly, she remarked, "I never thought my son's father would be one half of reality TV's golden couple." Everyone was astounded by her poise. While Kirk's team appeared tense, Rasheeda's fans softly applauded in her corner. There was silence in the courtroom as the influencer related a private message from Kirk that said he would make things right. Fans are astonished by the influencer's poise under duress and commend her for her courage and poise while opposing the man they looked up to. For the first time since the scandal, Rasheeda's sister spoke up as reporters gathered around her outside. Cameras shone as she accused Kirk of manipulating everyone to maintain his brand. Her voice trembled with wrath as she revealed the family's heartbreak. "We loved Kirk like a son, and he repaid us with deception." Her remarks caused division in the family. Although some siblings nodded in agreement, others shook their heads defensively at the idea of discussing personal hurts. Loyalty shattered along fault lines that no one had previously noticed. And emotions ran high as lines were drawn in the sand. Fan-made surveys on social media that asked, "Which side are you on?" The binary options didn't seem appropriate for such a complex betrayal. Meanwhile, Kirk made his first private visit to the influencer's little apartment since paternity testing verified his paternity. She looked up from a stack of baby toys, her eyes cautious but interested, as he entered carrying a bouquet of wildflowers and said softly, "I'm sorry, I hid this from you." "Why now?" she inquired. Kirk took a trembling breath, acknowledging his fear of his formidable wife's criticism and the possible blow to his career. She offered him tea after listening without interjecting. Every cup that was poured seemed to be a step closer to uneasy comprehension. Kirk marveled at their baby boy's innocence as he watched her hold him. The scene served as a sobering reminder of the price he paid for keeping his secrets. A mother thrust into unwelcome celebrity, a once happy husband and wife split apart, and a kid born into controversy. Fans are taken aback by Kirk's humility. In that particular situation, which stands in stark contrast to his haughtiness in public remarks. At home, Rasheeda wavered between rage and desire. She read through forums where supporters argued about whether she should make amends or go for good while still wearing her dressing gown. While some comments encouraged her to take advantage of the PR triumph, others cautioned her that forgiving people could only lead to further betrayals in the future. How do you rebuild a foundation shattered by lies? She typed in a private chat, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Truth is the mortar that must hold you," a friend retorted simply. Rasheeda closed her eyes and allowed the words to sink in. Every sliver of trust seemed brittle. Yet there was a glimmer of optimism in the prospect of reconstruction. Suddenly, there was another bombshell. A voice memo from Kirk arranging a late-night meeting with the influencer at a secluded villa was leaked by an unidentified source. He said, "We have to keep our story straight. Rasheeda can't know until after the holidays," in a grainy but unmistakable audio clip that shocked gossip blogs. The heartless tone shocked supporters who accused Kirk of treating everyone like a chess piece as the note was played back. Viewers' emotions were running high as they analyzed his tone to determine whether it was one of regret, lust, or apathy. The family was split once more. Some argued that Rasheeda should walk away with this evidence, while others called for public accountability and confrontation. Kirk reacted by hosting an unexpected press conference outside the influencer's attorney's office. He spoke without prepared statements, accompanied by the influencer and legal counsel, saying, "I failed as a partner, and I failed as a man. I own those mistakes." Rasheeda watched the live video from her automobile, her pulse racing so hard she thought her chest may burst. Kirk went on to say that he would co-parent sensibly, attend all of her therapy sessions, and withdraw from public life if necessary. Sweat and tears mixed on his face as he talked, displaying a raw vulnerability that had never been witnessed before. The sincerity of his confession has startled his admirers. Some are sympathetic while others are skeptical that this was just another ploy. For the first time since the story broke, Rasheeda went home that evening. She was greeted with silence and warmth in the foyer. Standing beneath the crystal chandelier that once radiated promise, Kirk waited. Silently taking off his shoes, he walked over to her holding a single candle. "I'm here," he said in a shaky voice. Rasheeda looked around at the guy who had caused so much suffering, the flickering flame, and the gentle touch. She let herself move forward but maintained her distance, uncertain if she would accept the invitation. Kirk's hand lingered there. Eyes locked, weighed down by the past. Neither said anything at that time. They felt the physical pressure of their previous choices. Rasheeda trembled inside, tears welling up. Kirk's expression softened, and he approached slowly. Outside, kaleidoscopic patterns were created on the floor by the moonlight streaming through stained glass windows. The promise of reconciliation and the risk of new heartache were both present in the quiet. The closeness of that moment, as well as the sensitivity of two titans of reality drama as they debated whether love could endure treachery, astounds followers. Rasheeda finally whispered, "Show me you mean it," with the aroma of melted wax and nostalgia in the air. Kirk nodded, his voice barely audible, and said, "I will." And in that shared breath, amidst the echoes of public scrutiny and the wreckage of trust, they stood at the beginning of their next chapter, uncertain, fragile, but unquestionably alive. The air was still tinged with candle smoke from last night's shaky reconciliation when Kirk and Rasheeda found themselves side by side on the terrace as dawn broke. Birds chirped hesitantly, as though they weren't sure whether to rejoice over the couple's union. As she collected her thoughts, Rasheeda draped a blanket over her shoulders and traced the woven designs with her fingers. Kirk leaned against the railing, staring to the horizon where sky and sea merged, hoping to find a clue that there was more to their destiny than doubt. In the gentle morning light, Kirk began by saying, "I want to rebuild our life one honest step at a time," in a low, earnest voice. Rasheeda listened, folding and unfolding the blanket as she considered the significance of his words. He listed the minor adjustments he planned to make, such as distraction-free family dinners, phone-free weekly check-ins, and private therapy sessions to address the anxieties that had forced him into hiding. Every pledge felt like a brick placed into a wall designed to fortify their brittle faith. Her eyes were far away as she nodded slowly. "I'm scared," she said, her voice almost audible above a whisper. Kirk turned, his brow furrowed in concern. He extended his hand and brushed a flyaway hair away from her face. "I understand," he said, "but I'll share that fear with you." His tone of honesty eased the chill of betrayal by settling around her heart like warm water. "You won't face it alone." In that instant, their shared vulnerability seemed to bridge the gap between them. Silent toys strewn across the nursery served as reminders of the life they still shared, and half-packed suitcases in the guest room were proof of Rasheeda's first impulse to escape. As if wanting the memory to remind them of the reason they fought so hard, Kirk straightened a picture of them laughing on a tropical beach that was on the mantel. Rasheeda put her hand over his and joined him. They unconsciously agreed to battle for what was left when their fingertips touched. By midday, they gathered around the kitchen table with their kids, while Rasheeda set the table and Kirk prepared pancakes. Every action was thoughtful and purposeful. Unaware of the tremors that had rocked their world, their kids talked about schoolwork and weekend plans. Kirk looked at Rasheeda with appreciation in his eyes for her readiness to resume this routine and gradually restore normalcy. After weeks of turmoil, this small harmony felt revolutionary as a soft smile tugged at the corners of Rasheeda's lips. Later, determined to steer the narrative together, Kirk and Rasheeda went to a joint interview with a reliable journalist. With their hands joined in the middle, they sat on a comfortable sofa in a tiny studio. Rasheeda interrupted Kirk's open discussion of his errors to share her thoughts on resiliency and the value of openness. Fans heard a previously unheard aspect of their story, confessions made by two individuals dedicated to mending rather than by pre-written statements. Social media was ablaze with responses as the interview aired. Some viewers applauded their candor, while others held back on passing judgment. However, almost everyone concurred that this chapter seemed different, less show, more genuine. Kirk adopted a new perspective on fatherhood in the weeks that followed. During late-night feedings, he gently held his newborn kid while whispering promises and apologies into the baby's ear. The small, naive, and trusting face served as a constant reminder of his obligations. Rasheeda observed from the doorway, her eyes displaying a mixture of adoration and caution. Although she understood that forgiveness did not make sorrow go away, it did enable her to see Kirk's attempts to improve himself for the benefit of all of his kids, as the plot progressed from scandal to redemption. External forces progressively subsided, using their voyage as a warning about the perils of secrecy. Late-night talk show hosts encouraged Kirk and Rasheeda to explain what they had discovered. Supporting messages were provided by admirers who shared their personal tales of forgiveness and betrayal. Although the pair publicly thanked everyone, they kept some private time for introspection because they knew that public opinion could change at any time. The influential mother, meanwhile, stepped back from the limelight to concentrate on her child's early achievements. In an effort to protect his son from the media craze, Kirk made sure she had help for childcare and education. Rasheeda supported these initiatives because she believed they were sincere attempts to undo the harm. The three adults scheduled regular meetings and established limits that prioritized the well-being of the child while honoring everyone's needs. Kirk surprised Rasheeda with a short family vacation to the mountains, a place they had visited when they first started dating as summer grew warmer. With the kids, they hiked twisting paths devoid of public relations, personnel, and phone connections. They sat around a campfire after dark, sharing childhood tales and eating marshmallows. Sound of laughter was as gentle as a lullaby, echoing amongst the pines, with every crackle of the fire reminding her of the warmth they once shared. Rasheeda marveled at the joy of being with her family again. A night by the fire, Kirk drew Rasheeda away. Unaware of the gravity of the situation, the kids played close by. With his heart racing, Kirk knelt. He gave a plain ring, an heirloom from Rasheeda's grandmother, and added, "I know I can't undo the past, but I want to build a future no one can tear down." Rasheeda's eyes filled with tears as she understood that this gesture was grounded in authenticity and family history, rather than being ostentatious. After silently accepting it, she put it to her heart and then put it on her finger. They watched the stars come out together, glimmering beacons of hope against the gloomy sky. Something priceless blossomed in the silence: love-bound forgiveness. Their combined breath was carried by the night air, demonstrating their tenacity in the face of treachery. The story of the Frost family altered as the seasons changed back home. Kirk and Rasheeda established new routines, including compassionate co-parenting, planning date nights, and having open discussions about their emotions. Therapy continued to be a pillar, a haven where they could uncover buried anxieties and re-establish confidence. There were still difficulties, doubtful times, resurfaced rumors, but they handled each one together, strengthened by the knowledge gained from their experience. Fans watched this development closely and frequently left comments expressing their admiration for the couple's readiness to share both their struggles and their victories. On occasion, Kirk and Rasheeda replied with unguarded video updates that featured ordinary but significant occasions, such as reading aloud on Sunday mornings, volunteering at the neighborhood community center, or instructing their kids. These glimpses into everyday life struck a deeper chord than any dramatic headline. Rasheeda considered the journey that had changed her world as the year came to an end. Her life had been shattered by betrayal, but bravery had led her back to love. She came to see that healing was an ongoing process of choosing love, understanding, and truth, rather than a final destination. Kirk, who used to hide in the shadows, was now standing next to her, facing the sun, responsible and full of optimism. As a result, the Frost family entered the new year bearing both promises that called them to the future and scars that served as a reminder of their past. Once characterized by scandal, their story had evolved into one of redemption, demonstrating the strength of integrity and the enduring nature of love. Fans eagerly awaited the next chapter, but they were also motivated by the one they had already seen. Two brave souls who chose to support one another in the most crucial moments. One thing is certain as this explosive chapter comes to an end: the world of the Frost family will never be the same. Rasheeda's unvarnished confrontation demonstrated that even the strongest connections can break under the weight of secrets. While Kirk's secret life destroyed the appearance of perfection, friends, admirers, and family are all still feeling the effects of the treachery, which still reverberates across their shared past. However, glimmering glimmer of optimism appear amid the debris. Rasheeda's bravery in demanding the truth, Kirk's resolve to rebuild honestly, And the newborn life at the center of this story serve as a reminder that redemption is possible but never assured. When there is laughter in the halls, will trust entirely return? Can falsehoods mend the wounds caused by transparency? As fragile as the promise of morning after a long dark night? These questions still hang in the air. You have seen the stress of a courtroom confrontation, secret recordings, and snatched looks of regret. You have witnessed a husband struggle to restore his honor, a secret child torn between two worlds, and a wife forge her way between rage and compassion. Kirk, Rasheeda, and you now have the next phase. Will they overcome their errors, or will trust break down once more? Time will tell. But in this developing drama, your voice counts. If every turn has captivated you, tell us which allegiances you have. Tell us if you think Rasheeda should forgive Kirk completely, or if this betrayal creates an irreversible boundary. Is their relationship doomed to fall apart under the weight of these discoveries? Or do you think it can endure the wounds of deceit? If you're interested in the Frost family's turbulent trip, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss a second of the drama. Subscribe for more in-depth analyses of the most juicy scandals in real life. And like this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. They could lead to the next major development. Because every viewpoint matters in a tale this dramatic, we would want to hear from